Welcome to the Unpacking the Framework video series. This series provides valuable information about the National Best Practice Framework for Early Childhood Intervention. My name is Denise Luscombe, and this video introduction is being recorded on Wajja Noongar Budja. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and the land you are listening from, and recognise their continued connection to country, waterways and community. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. This video is one of a series that describes the evidence and practice information that underpins the principles of the National Best Practice Framework for Early Childhood Intervention. You will hear from both national and international speakers throughout this video series. This video covers strengths-based, a universal principle of the National Best Practice Framework for Early Childhood Intervention, and is presented by our national speaker, Bernadette Glass. Bernadette has presented in the early childhood intervention services space for 25 years, entering as the change from centre-based to a family-centred approach took place. She supported this transition by including the strengths approach as the shift in conversation moved from the technical to the more holistic family inclusion context. Bernadette is a registered nurse and has qualifications and experience working in community human services sector and in training and assessment.
Hello, and thank you for that introduction. I'm delighted and honoured to be here to present in this early childhood intervention space. Appreciation is fundamental to strengths-based practice. It underlies it all in the context of early childhood intervention, where there's a concern for the child, where there's a developmental delay or a diagnosed disability. Appreciation runs right through as that family navigates their way through the systems, through the adjustments and changes to their family to really maximise the child's life and their life as a family. So what is strength-based practice? It's working in partnership with our client. It's focusing on the purpose of our role and the quality of service we deliver. It confirms our strengths and resources, both internal and external, our community resources, our family resources, and other aspects of our lives that we can draw on or that we interact with. None of these is separate from who we are in our day-to-day life and how we live our life. It nominates learning goals, shares responsibility, involves reflective practice, a very important part for us as practitioners especially. It allows space for learning and making mistakes, and it communicates openly and uses transparent practices. So this approach is not a model, it's an approach to people, and the instrument that delivers the strengths approach is us as practitioners. The instrument is not like a forklift moving pallets from one side of a factory to another. So what's happening for me and what people get or who people get when they get me is an important aspect of this approach. So our self-awareness is fundamental to who we're being as we deliver the service. So it's having a relationship with ourselves and appreciating our own strengths and our unique design. Connecting with our own enoughness, and I'll explore that a little bit more in a couple of minutes. It's knowing what triggers our emotions and blurs our objectivity. It's being connected to the purpose and why we do what we do, observing and not absorbing what's happening for other people, their issues, their problems, which can be huge at times, especially in this space. And we'll look at the river metaphor a bit later on to explore this a bit further as well. It's valuing our consistency with our self-care routine and reflecting on our reactions and also our responses. Are we reacting or responding in certain situations? A great question to ask around self-awareness. So our self-awareness is not about changing others or waiting for them to change or wanting for them to change or to be different. So what is this about enoughness, our inbuilt blueprint? It's got nothing to do with our abilities and our achievements. What if we're all already enough? Enoughness confirms our value, is innate and unchangeable, responds to deep respect and care. It's our essence, and it brings settlement to our body. So when we feel settled in our body, we feel enough. It's reflected in nature, newborns, seasonal wonders, the night sky, and us. It's disregarded when the qualities of deep respect and care are dishonoured. Our enoughness is often dismissed by societal expectations and demands, put-downs, discrimination, anything that does not honour the innate value of us as a person. It's often not honoured by ourselves and can lead to becoming exhausted, blaming, withdrawal, and can lead to burnout. Our enoughness muscle, if you like, needs to be exercised regularly. And the principles of this strengths approach about this way of being with people is that we've just stated that we're already enough, that we're equal, that we all have strengths, we're made of them, they're our foundations, and we can't actually learn and grow without connecting with them in some way. That the person and the problem are always separate, that we all have a right to self-determination, and that accepting and embracing our strengths transforms perceived deficits into possibilities. The strengths approach is about complementing the resources that we have in our landscape and not compensating for deficits. Another aspect of our self-care is learning the difference between reactions and responses and just being aware of those in our life. So our reactions are those strong emotional feelings that can trigger behaviours like aggression, withdrawal, self-harm. Self-harm can just be consistent negative self-talk. When we judge others and ourselves, and we usually do judge ourselves first, when we're not good enough, others aren't good enough, they're untrustworthy, they're less than me, they're incompetent, I'm incompetent. All those are judging others of ourselves, as opposed to our responses, which are considered ways of acting and or thinking that arise from observing a situation rather than absorbing it. So standing back and observing the situation and then making a considered response. And it's when we understand others' actions or expressions and we act or express in ways that are supportive, clear, and also when needed, decisive. Here's a self-awareness exercise that we won't go into too much detail now, but it's really an opportunity if you wanted to stop this presentation and just to do this exercise, to just check in with when we're reacting and when we're responding and how our personal relationship with that looks. As practitioners, we all have positional power, and this slide just invites us to look at how we use that. Do we use our position to invite partnership with people? So it's a power that invites respect, sharing, transparency, openness, partnership, and equivalence? Or is it a force that imposes in subtle ways, like gossip? It's controlling, forceful, silent, manipulative, withdrawing, and exclusive. As with any of our work, we need to adjust our approach to meet the client where they're at, because not all our clients will engage easily. Our clients will have their reactions as well, and we need to read the client where they're at and adjust our responses, assess the differences in the way that the client receives information. Is it more practice? Is it more theory? And having expectations can set ourselves up as practitioners when those are not met. We want to work at being clear and non-judgmental and transparent, And I feel like I'm selling water by the river when I say that. It's so basic, but it's worth mentioning. And our clients will sniff out our judgment as we do. They'll sniff that out in a nanosecond. And we also want to have fun. A way of doing that is to consider that we all have our own landscape, if you like. And I always talk about no one knows what it's like to do Bernadette Glass. No one has had my experience. So when you speak with me, it's becoming curious about my landscape. That's where you'll learn about my strengths. Not imposing your agenda in my landscape, if you like. So it's an invitation to explore the landscape of our client and also where they interact, the school, the community, the childcare. And as practitioners, we are unaware of our clients' true experience. We're all different and experience our lives according to where we're at. Becoming curious about where our clients are at is a great start in eliciting and noticing and confirming and feeding back strengths. It's like we all have our own landscape to navigate, including our work and the spaces in which we interact. And that's within an all-inclusive landscape. And we all have our own unique expression in that, as I said. So becoming curious is a really vital aspect of using strengths-based skills. One person's change process may have aspects that seem like a walk in the park. For another, that same similar process might be like climbing a mountain. Again, no assumptions. And clients may at times be in overwhelm and experience this like a thick fog or a paper bag over their head. And when we're in overwhelm, we don't have perspective. So we don't see that we do have strengths. We've lost sight of those. And a beautiful aspect of strength-based practice is becoming curious about what's happened previously, what's happened in the past, for people to be able to move through some of the difficulties that they have had or they're having. So our job is not to assume and to assume that we know another's landscape, but it's to experience that, but it's to keep focused on understanding the client's landscape and assisting them by the conversation to explore and to begin to review the strengths and possibilities that it holds. And they are vast if we take the time and space and observation to connect with them. We also have a duty of care, as we know, as practitioners, for client safety, and that's always non-negotiable. One of the misnomers about the strengths approach is that we don't have the necessary conversations. It's too strengths-based, which isn't true. But because we have such a transparent approach, then that means that the necessary or hard conversations can happen easily. We set up the purpose of the intervention early in the relationship, and we know where the clients are and what they want, and we will know when the agreements aren't being followed. So we can be clear about responsibilities and what's getting in the way of moving forward. And setbacks are going to happen, and we respond accordingly. And we can do that with straight talk because it comes from our clients already knowing that we're aware of their strengths. And this brings us to the use of strength-based language. And as I mentioned, we're made of strengths. They're our foundation. So we're constantly confirming and appreciating our clients, the children we work with, their families, and we ask questions and become curious about the client's landscape to bring those strengths forward. So that can be questions like, as I say there, how did you manage to do this program with the type of week you've had? Where did you learn the consistency, thoughtfulness, reliability? Where did you learn those skills? So we're not telling people that you're very skillful, you're very thoughtful, you're very reliable. We're actually asking them, where did you learn those? And for the client to respond to those, they need to go into their landscape. They need to actually respond using a strength. So the way we ask questions, the way we connect with our clients, assuming that their landscape is full of strengths, if we come from that premise, then most of our clients are going to engage with us. If we ask questions to describe what they find works well for them in relation to their goals and purposes of the intervention, again, we're putting the client at the front and we're leading from behind. So we're not dragging the client along, and we're actually moving with them. We're walking beside them or behind them. The only time we lead from the front is when there's a safety issue. We ask our clients to tell us what will be different, if anything, when there's been an improvement, when they're not feeling so anxious, when they're not feeling so worried. Questions to invite empowerment. This is part of my favourite aspect of the strengths approach. Asking questions into the client's landscape, and they have to respond from their strengths usually. So questions like I've mentioned here: what do you want to happen? How will that make a difference? What's meaningful for you? What do we need to know about you so we can support you in the best way possible? Questions like, when has the tension or the problem been less of a concern or absent? These questions are asking the client to go to their landscape, and look at when things were working a bit better or when they weren't as worried. What was happening then? And then if we get detail about that, there's often an aha moment or a forgotten moment that in the intensity of what's in the overwhelm of what's happening now, there's not access to those strengths and those practices or the activities that supported and moved the person out of what I call the black hole or the slump that they may be in at that moment. These are questions are called exceptions, which is a narrative therapy term. And often our clients' stories will be very problem saturated. So we listen for the contradiction in that story. And that's where often, as I said, the clue to what to do next is held. So what supports do you have in place? When could you take that first step? What would that be? Who else can support you? When would you feel more settled or less tense? And when has that happened in the past? Again, that going back to where are the markers? Where are the exceptions? Where are the times in the past where it hasn't been so intense? Often great questions, and some magical responses come there with the awareness, the aha moments of our clients. And there are more questions here about empowerment, inviting questions into the client's landscape that can help their strengths to emerge and get them to start talking about what they want to happen, because they're starting to talk from their own experience, their own landscape, if you like. I developed the river metaphor many years ago when I saw that practitioners were becoming overwhelmed when they moved from the centre-based clinical work into the community, where it was more family-focused or community-focused. And I observed practitioners talking about going to the family homes, finding a parent opening the door at 3:00 in the afternoon crying when the practitioner was there to perhaps do a session on speech or physio or to support the family and the young person, but they couldn't push past the parent who was grieving at the time because of the concern or the developmental delay or the diagnosed disability of their child. So to engage in that space meant that they had to put aside that perhaps their plan for the day or the session and deal with what was happening for the parent. And I likened that to some of the practitioners drowning. And so the metaphor was about supporting them to stay on the banks of the river and deliver their service from there, or the jetty, because we can't live someone else's life for them. We can support them to navigate their way. We can offer them spare oars and life jackets and teach them how to mend their nets metaphorically. We can throw them a lifeline. But we offer much more effective support when we stay on the banks of the river. We can't row another person's boat, and we certainly can't row more than one at a time. And if we're in the river, then we're stuck there. It's very difficult to move around different clients if we're immersed in someone else's life. And you may want to stop this presentation about the river metaphor and talk about those aspects of our work where we do get in the river. What does that look like? What's it like when we're in our ankle deep and then knee deep, and what's it like observing our colleagues in the river? Because the river is part of the client's landscape, not the practitioner's. So when supporting our clients, we do so from the jetty, from the banks of the river. We can access many clients from the jetty. It's sturdy and safe, and it's very difficult for us to be pulled into the river. Our clients will sometimes inadvertently, not necessarily intending to, but they will want to pull us into the river with them. They'll be looking for that intense support, and we need to be aware of what our triggers are to get in the river with them. We can also call the emergency services, and if that's needed, that's exactly what we do. So that brings me to the end of this presentation on strength-based practice, and just like to again thank you for the opportunity and to be reminded of the fact that we're all made of strengths, and that the way forward for the client comes from their own landscape. It doesn't come from the practitioners, and that you will be of great support to your clients using the strengths approach when we don't impose, and that we appreciate all that goes into the landscape and makes up the landscape of our clients, and indeed ourselves and our colleagues. So thank you again.
We hope you've enjoyed this video, part of the video series Unpacking the Framework for the National Best Practice Framework for Early Childhood Intervention. The review of best practice in early childhood intervention was commissioned by the Department of Social Services. Led by the University of Melbourne, the project team included PRECI, professionals and researchers in early childhood intervention, Murdoch Children's Research Institute, SNAKE, National Voice for Our Children, Children and Young People with Disability Australia, and ACD, Advocating for Children with Disability. Coordination and production of the video series was led by PRECI.